Chosen one. Who said underdogs can't change the game? They never expected someone like you to shift the atmosphere just by showing up. You weren't the loudest in the room. You weren't the most decorated, the most praised. You weren't crowned with applause. But the moment you stepped into alignment, everything around you began to adjust. Let's be honest. Some people had written you off long ago. You were overlooked, underestimated, quietly dismissed. And for a while, maybe even you questioned your own worth. You watched the star players get celebrated while you were stuck in the background, trying to make sense of your silence. But here's the truth they never told you. Silence doesn't mean smallness. It means formation. You were never weak. You were just being forged in secret. While others were performing for the spotlight, you were building something eternal in the shadows. They called you quiet, but you were actually studying. They said you were slow, but you were actually deepening. They assumed you were behind, but you were simply being prepared. Because chosen ones are not born to be average. They are sculpted through the storms that others avoid. And you, chosen one, have walked through fire with bare feet and came out carrying wisdom in your bones. So let me ask you, were you being punished or were you being prepared? That job you didn't get? That relationship that fell apart? That friend who turned cold? Those were not punishments. Those were divine redirections. They were carving you out for something greater. You didn't lose, you evolved. Imagine a diamond buried beneath layers of earth, under pressure, heat, darkness. No one sees it. No one praises it. But when it emerges, it shines in a way nothing else can. That's you. That's your process. You weren't ignored. You were hidden for a holy reason. And while you were in that hidden season, something powerful was forming inside of you. It didn't look glamorous. It didn't feel victorious. But your spirit, your resilience, was sharpening. Let me give you a real-life example. Have you ever seen a backup player on a sports team? Someone who sits on the bench season after season, hardly getting any recognition? But then one day the star player gets injured. Suddenly the one nobody noticed steps onto the court and dominates. Not because they were lucky, but because they were ready. That's you. The world didn't see your late nights, your silent prayers, your breakdowns that turned into breakthroughs. But now they're watching. Now they feel your presence. Now the star player feels your light. And they're trying to figure out when you became the threat they never prepared for. But here's the twist. You didn't rise out of revenge. You didn't rise to prove a point. You rose because you couldn't stay hidden any longer. Purpose pushed you forward. Calling cracked your comfort. And now, you're not just in the room. You're shifting the balance of power without even trying. There's something sacred about a person who's been rejected and still chooses to rise. It creates an energy no applause can replicate, and that's what you carry. That's what lit up the room when you walked in. You weren't chasing the spotlight. The spotlight just realized where the real light was coming from. So if you're feeling confused about why people are acting different, why old spaces feel too small, why familiar faces seem unsettled around your growth, it's because they're witnessing the emergence of a new you, the version they never expected, the version you fought to become. And let this sink in. You didn't beat them at their own game. You changed the entire arena. So breathe, chosen one. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not lost. You're ready. This is what all that quiet strength was for. And this is only the beginning. Pause here if you need to. Let that truth settle in your spirit. Rewind if you need to remember who you really are. Because from here on out, we're not playing small anymore. Stay tuned. In the next section, we're going deeper. The game has changed, and so have you. Chosen one. Can you see what they always missed? Not with your eyes, but with your spirit. That quiet inner knowing, that sense that something is off, even when everyone else is smiling. That's not paranoia. That's perception. That's spiritual intelligence. While others chased noise and applause, you were taught how to listen to silence. You didn't just learn to hear what people say, you learned to feel what they don't say, and that kind of knowing doesn't come from textbooks or titles. It comes from surviving spaces where words meant nothing but energy said everything. Let me ask you, do you feel the energy has shifted lately? Maybe you've walked into a room and felt tension before anyone spoke, or maybe you sensed someone's disappointment, even when they said, "I'm fine." That's your gift, chosen one. The ability to read between the lines, to feel truth vibrating beneath polite lies. It didn't start out as a gift though, did it? At first it felt like a burden. You felt too much. You noticed too much. You couldn't turn it off. And because the world didn't understand it, you tried to silence it. You tried to blend in. You tried to shrink what was sacred. But what the world called overly sensitive was actually your spirit sharpening in secret. Your silence didn't make you weak, it made you tuned in. While others were distracted by appearances, you were building a frequency that cut through illusion. Let me give you an example. Picture someone standing in a dark room, learning to move by touch, while everyone else depends on bright lights to see. When the lights suddenly go out, who moves with confidence? Not the one who depended on visibility, but the one who trained in the shadows. That's you. You've trained in environments where clarity wasn't given freely. You had to discern it. You had to feel it in the pit of your stomach. You had to read emotional landscapes like maps. You had to survive based on your inner radar. That's why now, even when things look calm on the surface, you can feel when the current is shifting underneath. You can sense manipulation wrapped in flattery. You can smell envy hiding behind fake support. You know when someone's energy changes before they even realize it themselves. They think you're guessing. You're not. You're perceiving. This is spiritual intelligence, wisdom that comes not from being loud, but from being aware. And that awareness was forged through everything you didn't get, the conversations you weren't included in, the opportunities you had to observe from afar, the pain of always having to watch instead of participate. But all of that taught you to see what others miss. And now that the tables are turning, you're walking into situations where others are still performing, still posturing, still relying on charm and volume. But you're moving with quiet clarity. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to prove what you know, because your spirit already knows. And that unsettles people, because spiritual intelligence can't be controlled. It's not based on credentials. It's not dependent on appearance. It can't be bribed or flattered. It sees through, and that's what you've become. The one who sees through. The one who senses the real conversation beneath the surface words. The one who walks into a space and without saying anything, knows exactly who's real and who's pretending. So if you've been feeling the shift, trust it. If the old places feel heavier, if the familiar people feel different, if the room seems off even when everyone's smiling, you're not imagining it. You're awakening. You're growing into the full strength of your gift. And listen closely. Not everyone will understand that. Some will call you distant. Others will accuse you of being cold or changed. But that's only because you stopped ignoring what your soul always saw. You're not reacting less. You're just discerning more. And with that discernment comes peace. You're not here to match energy. You're here to shift it. So chosen one, stop apologizing for what you feel. Stop doubting what you've always known deep down. This is your intelligence, born from shadows, refined by silence, activated by truth. Let them miss the obvious. You'll keep sensing the hidden. Let them chase attention. You'll keep moving in alignment. Because in a world obsessed with noise, your spiritual intelligence is the quiet that cannot be ignored. Let's keep going. What you see next will require all of it. Chosen one, have you studied the game better than the champion? Because here's the thing. While they were busy playing to the crowd, you were paying attention to the patterns. You watched the game, not just from the bench, but from the spirit. You didn't rush to compete. You observed. You didn't mimic their moves. You mastered your own. And that's what they never saw coming. While they chased recognition, you chased understanding. While they repeated old strategies, you rewrote the blueprint. While they tried to stay on top, you quietly studied how the whole structure was built. You didn't copy their strategy. You outgrew the entire game. And now you're holding a move they never even saw on the board. Let me ask you something deeper. What happens when the overlooked one plays the piece no one thought they had? It's like chess. Everyone's watching the queen, the king, the flashy opening plays. But there you are, holding the bishop no one counted, the pawn that quietly crossed the board, the one sacred piece that shifts the entire dynamic when played at just the right moment. And when you move, the room goes silent. Because no one saw it coming. They didn't know you were holding that kind of insight. They didn't realize how deeply you had been paying attention. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your distance meant disinterest. But really, you were calculating, gathering, preparing. You weren't absent. You were strategic. Because chosen ones don't move out of ego. They move out of timing. And now, it's time. This is the moment where your preparation meets opportunity. This is where your hidden study becomes public revelation. This is where they realize they underestimated the one who was listening. You didn't need to interrupt the room. You didn't need to out-talk them. You simply waited. And when it counted most, you placed your piece on the table. And suddenly, everything changes. Let me give you a practical example. Have you ever sat in a meeting or group where someone always dominates the conversation? They control the direction, steer the tone, bask in authority. But one day you speak up, just once, just one idea, one insight, and the entire conversation pivots. That's not coincidence. That's power meeting timing. And that's what makes you dangerous in the best way. Not loud, not aggressive, but precise. You've become the quiet game changer, the one who doesn't need constant motion to make impact. And the most unsettling part for them, they didn't even see you coming. They had you boxed into the old version of yourself, the version who stayed quiet, the version who deferred, the version who hesitated, but that version evolved. And while they kept running old scripts, you rewired your entire operating system. You're no longer reacting to the game, they're reacting to you. Because they built their strategy expecting you to stay in your place. They rehearsed every outcome, except this one, the one where you sat still long enough to learn the rhythm, and then broke it with a move so unexpected they froze. And now they're scrambling, not because you're loud, but because your accuracy exposed their assumptions. You didn't just beat them at their own game. You reminded them that the rules were never fixed. That true mastery isn't about being first, it's about being ready. So chosen one, play your piece. Don't hesitate, don't second guess, don't explain. You earn this through quiet nights and invisible work, through the times you bit your tongue, through the seasons you watched and waited when no one gave you credit, through every moment you stayed focused while they got comfortable. Now is your moment to shift the board. And when you do, they'll realize it was never luck. It was strategy, it was timing, it was you. Let's keep going. The board is yours. Chosen one. Is this the moment you finally step into greatness? Not the kind of greatness people chase with noise and spotlight, but the kind that erupts quietly, when no one expected it. The kind that arrives not with a shout, but with presence. A stillness so undeniable, it reorders the entire room. Because when the moment came, you didn't flinch, you didn't shrink, you didn't ask for permission, you rose. And it wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it was final. This wasn't just a victory, it was a transfer of power. The kind of shift that doesn't need applause to make history. You see, chosen one, people had gotten comfortable watching you wait. They grew used to your silence. They mistook your humility for hesitation. But the truth is, you were never unsure of your value. You were just waiting for the exact right moment to move. And when it came, you didn't ask if the room was ready, because you were. You didn't second guess your worth. You didn't beg for acknowledgement. You just stepped into the space with clarity, and the atmosphere responded. Because greatness doesn't always arrive in grand entrances. Sometimes it walks in unnoticed and leaves everyone breathless. Let me give you an image. Picture a storm cloud that's been forming for days. Silent, slow, subtle. No one's watching it because the sky still looks calm. Then, without warning, lightning splits the sky, not to destroy but to illuminate. Just for a moment, the whole landscape is visible. That's you. The moment you moved, everything became clear. People who never looked twice are suddenly wide-eyed. The room that never gave you space is now adjusting to make room for your presence. Not because you demanded it, but because your spirit carries authority now. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to dominate to lead. You don't need to prove to be felt. Because chosen greatness is felt, not announced. And the most powerful part? You weren't even trying to impress. You were just being yourself, fully, finally, unapologetically. And in doing so, you exposed the truth, that the one they counted out is now the one they're watching. This is more than a win. It's a moment that marks a shift, a reversal, a reordering. They called you the underdog, but now you're setting the tone. They once had the spotlight, but now your quiet mastery commands attention, and they'll never admit it out loud. But something in them feels it, a subtle panic, an internal shake, because the one they assumed would always be behind just changed the standard. And here's what makes it even more powerful. You didn't need to crush them to rise. You didn't step on anyone's crown to claim your own. You simply grew beyond the version of yourself they were prepared to deal with. You rose not with aggression, but with alignment. And now, the atmosphere has shifted, not in chaos, but in clarity. You've become the pivot point, the unspoken force in the room, the new center of gravity. And when people look around and wonder, what just happened? They won't have words for it, because it wasn't just something you did, it was something you became. So if you're feeling that pull, that inner awareness that something is changing, if you're noticing how people react differently now, if you sense the weight of your presence landing more fully in every space you enter, trust it. This is the moment you step into the power that's always been yours. Not borrowed, not begged for, not stolen, but earned. Through every silent season, every hidden preparation, every tear that trained your strength. You didn't just win, you became. So chosen one, don't downplay it. Don't apologize for it. Don't shrink back now. This is the quiet coronation. And you are finally wearing what always belonged to you. Let's keep going, because from here, there's no going back. Chosen one, can your win uplift an entire generation? Because this was never just about you crossing the finish line. This was never just about proving a point or breaking a personal limit. This victory, this breakthrough, this moment you stepped into your power, it became a torch. And whether you realize it or not, someone out there is walking behind you, and they're using your light to find their way. Your win wasn't isolated, it echoed. You may have felt alone in your struggle, but you were never struggling in vain. Every obstacle you overcame, every night you cried in silence, every moment you stood up again after being knocked down, it all added fuel to a fire that now burns bright enough to guide others home. Let me paint the picture for you. Somewhere there's a young person doubting their value. They've been told they're too much or not enough. They've been overlooked, laughed at, underestimated, just like you once were. But then, they see you. Not the polished version, not the highlight reel, but the real you, the one who kept showing up even when no one noticed, and who finally broke through. And suddenly something clicks in their spirit. They whisper to themselves, if they can rise, maybe I can too. That's the power of your victory. It doesn't just shift your life, it shifts the atmosphere around you. It gives others permission to believe again, to try again, to hope again. Because your story isn't just inspirational, it's instructional. You didn't just talk about perseverance, you lived it. You didn't just post about growth, you embodied it. And now others are watching not just what you did, but how you did it. And they're learning, they're waking up, they're reimagining what's possible for them. That's what makes your breakthrough so sacred. Not that it happened, but that it happened in full view of those who needed to witness it most. You see, in the kingdom, elevation isn't just about position, it's about impact. And the higher you rise, the more people can see the path you took to get there. And make no mistake, people are watching, quietly, carefully, closely. Not out of envy, but out of hunger. They've been praying for proof that their life could mean more. They've been hoping for signs that their pain wasn't pointless. And your victory became that sign. Every time you show up in your fullness, you heal someone else's doubt. Every time you speak with confidence, someone else's insecurity gets challenged. Every time you walk in your calling, someone else's fear begins to loosen its grip. That's how powerful your presence has become. You are now the evidence someone else needed. Not because you were perfect, but because you were persistent. Not because it was easy, but because you didn't quit. Not because you had all the answers, but because you dared to keep walking in the dark, trusting that light would meet you along the way. And now that light is shining back through you. So don't downplay this win. Don't rush past it. Don't keep it to yourself. Let your breakthrough speak. Let your elevation echo. Because someone out there is still in the valley you just climbed out of, and your story might be the very map they've been praying for. You didn't just survive, you became a signpost. You didn't just win, you became a witness. So the next time you wonder if your story matters, remember this. Every time you rise, you lift others with you. Every time you speak truth, you shatter lies someone else believed for far too long. Every time you choose faith over fear, someone else learns how to trust again. This is impact beyond the victory. This is legacy. And you are just getting started. Let's go deeper. Because the ripple you've started is turning into a wave. Chosen one, why do some people grow distant when you rise? It's a question that lingers in the silence, especially after the victory. You thought they'd celebrate with you. You thought they'd clap louder than anyone. But instead, they disappeared. Their energy shifted. Their voice went quiet. And it stings, because these were the people who once held space for your tears, the ones who sat with you when things were dark. But now that the light has come, they can't seem to look you in the eye. But hear me clearly, your growth did not offend them. Your growth exposed them. See, not everyone was in love with you. Some were in love with your struggle, with the version of you that needed fixing, saving, or staying small. You rising? It disrupted their identity, because as long as you stayed beneath your potential, they felt safe, secure, even superior. But when you changed, the dynamic changed. This is the sacred side effect of elevation. Clarity. Growth reveals who was genuinely for you and who was only comfortable with your weakness. And no, this doesn't always come with malice or bad intention. Sometimes it's just fear, insecurity, an internal panic that they can't name, because your rise forced them to confront what they're not willing to face in themselves. Your confidence feels like confrontation to someone still hiding from their own reflection. Your healing feels like distance to someone still committed to their wounds. And your light, it shines on their shadows. So what do? They pull away. Not because they hate you, but because your evolution makes them question their own. And I know it hurts, because these are people you love deeply, people you imagined would walk every step of the journey with you, people you thought were safe. But chosen one, Understand this. When you rise, you will outgrow some relationships. That doesn't make you disloyal. It means you're aligned. Think of a tree growing taller. Its roots must go deeper, but its branches also stretch wider. Some old leaves fall off. Some birds fly away. Not because the tree was wrong to grow, but because the season changed. And your season has changed. So don't mourn the distance as rejection. See it as revelation. You needed to see who could rise with you and who was only strong when you were down. You needed to feel who could handle your greatness, not just your brokenness. You needed to know who loved you, not just the version of you that was easier to manage. Let me give you an example. Have you ever noticed how some people cheer for the underdog until the underdog starts winning? Suddenly the support fades. The compliments grow cold. The room shifts. Why? Because some people want to witness your pain, not your power. But your journey was never about keeping others comfortable. It was about becoming whole. So when their energy changes, don't chase, don't explain, don't shrink. Just bless them and release them. Because losing people isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's God's way of clearing your path, making room for those who are truly aligned with your purpose. And here's what's beautiful. As you rise, your tribe will find you. The ones who celebrate your growth, not fear it. The ones who cheer when you win, not silently hope you fall. The ones who are healed enough to handle the new you. They're coming. But first, you had to let go of what was weighing you down. So if you've been feeling the sting of disconnection, if the room feels quieter, if some old friends are now distant echoes, trust the process. This isn't rejection. This is refinement. Because chosen ones were never meant to stay in crowded rooms full of false comfort. You were meant to walk boldly into clarity, even if that means walking alone for a while. And the clarity you're gaining now, it's priceless. You'll never have to guess again who's for you. You'll know. And knowing, that's peace. Let's keep going, because what's ahead is worth every goodbye behind you. Chosen one, what will you do with this power now? You've risen, you've broken the silence, you've stepped into a version of yourself that once felt distant, maybe even impossible. And now here you are, stronger, wiser, more grounded. But this is not the end of the story, it's the beginning. You didn't just reach the top of a mountain, you reached a platform, a new altitude where the air is clearer and the expectation is higher. This wasn't your peak, it's your launching pad. That breakthrough, that moment when everything aligned and you finally stood in your power, it wasn't the reward, it was the release. The door cracked open, the chains fell off, and now you're standing in a space you once prayed to reach, wondering what now? Let me tell you, this is where the real mission begins. Everything you've learned, every hardship, every detour, every silent night of asking God why, it all prepared you for this moment of choice.